Bismillah walhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. So today we're going to continue in our summary and taking off some important points in representative verses from each surah. Today we're going to summarize Surah Al-Hijr and Surah Al-Nahl. So if we look at Surah Al-Hijr, we see that Surah Al-Hijr is this Mecca surah. It was revealed all in Mecca, and it has this general theme of the importance of the Quran, the guidance of the Quran, and that the Quran is the basis of all ayahs. And then it emphasizes the many ayahs that we see around in the world around us. It goes in the creation story, and it talks about how Adam was created and how his enemy, Satan, and the conflict that we are naturally in, and the end results. And this surah has a lot of emphasis in some longer portions about heaven and hell. It is a very strong rebuke for idolatry and worshiping other than God, and it basically condemns it as irrational and reminding us of the previous nations who were committed to their idolatry, what happened to them. It emphasizes the creation element, that creation is built on truth and that everything exists in the truth of God. And so doing his will is the essence of the truth of all creation. So let's talk about verse number 9, Inna nahnu nazzalna dhikr, famous verse that many scholars have understood to mean that this is the verse that is a prophecy of the preservation of the Holy Quran. This verse is the most emphasized verse in the entire Quran. Inna nahnu nazzalna wa inna lahu lahafidhun. The language is surely we, and the royal we are the ones who it is we who have revealed and sent down this reminder, meaning the Quran specifically, but also the Sunnah, as the Sunnah explains the Quran. And we are its preservers, meaning we are the ones who will preserve it in divine authority. So this is a prophecy that obviously has come true. Here we are 14 centuries later, and we find that the actual anthropological evidence shows that what was spoken by the Prophet ﷺ as the Quran was meticulously preserved and promoted and kept intact until today. If we move to verse number 39, it's the argument of the devil. The devil is blaming Satan, Iblis. He is blaming God for his shortcoming. Rabbi bima aghwaytani. Well, because you have sent me astray. Even though it was his free will, it was his choice to decide not to bow down as a result of his pride and his envy of Adam. And so he says, what I will make attractive to all of these human beings that you say are better than me. I will call them to be attracted to and desire the worldly pleasures of this world, and that they will really feel attached to their material desires rather than these spiritual teachings that you will send them. And so then God basically declares that not his righteous, sincere servants who are doing his will, following his message. Then it goes into those who will listen to the call of God and they will sincerely submit themselves to his message. Udkhuluha bi salamin aminin. Enter into the heavens in pure peace, in permanent safety and security, and we will relieve you and remove from all of those who go to heaven any of those bad feelings of anger and sadness and all of the things, the bad negative thoughts and feelings that we have. And then it says, لا يمسهم فيها نصب. In heaven, nobody will ever get tired. They will never get bored. They will never feel exhausted. There will be pureness of absolute bliss and enjoyment for eternity. So then he concludes that section by telling all the believers to communicate to others. نَبِّئْ عِبَادِي أَنِّي أَنَا الْغَفُورُ الرَّحِيمُ. Tell my servants, tell everyone, I am the forgiving and the merciful. And at the same time, my punishment is painful, meaning you can choose to turn to me and I'm ready to forgive you all your sins and I'm ready to put you in eternity of bliss. Or you can be your own independent decide for yourself your morality and not care about prophethood and revelation, and you will find a punishment for that, having tried to separate yourself from me, your creator, provider, and sustainer. So then the story in verse number 56, it goes to that portion where Abraham is being told, in your old age, you will have a son. And so he expresses some doubt and feels like, are you really, I can have a son at this age, even though he's been praying for it. قال وَمَن يَقْنَطُ مِن رَحْمَةِ رَبِّهِ إِلَّا الضَّالُونَ. Who would be hopeless of the mercy of their Lord except for someone who's clearly misguided, right? And then if we move to verse number 85, towards the end of the surah, وَمَا خَلَقْنَا السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَا إِلَّا بِالْحَقِّ. We have only created everything in the entire universe with truth, with a system of truth, with a clear balance of truth. And so then it says, وَإِنَّ السَّاعَةَ لَآتِيَةٌ. So you have to realize that this day of judgment is coming for all of us. We are going to die sooner than later. We are getting closer to death every day. So live in the truth of creation. Submit to the will of your Lord who created you. فَاصْفَحِ الصَّفْحَ الْجَمِيلَ. And don't allow the haters to bother you. Just pardon, overlook, smile in the face, turn away from annoying people who are rejectors of the truth and who cause problems for you. And then at the end of the verse, وَعْبُدْ رَبَّكَ حَتَّى يَأْتِيَكَ الْيَقِينَ. Stay in a state of worship until that certainty of death comes to you. So now it moves to Surah Al-Nahl. Again, Surah Al-Nahl is a Makki surah. It carries these verses that were revealed in Mecca. Its fundamental purpose is connecting between monotheism and the pure worship of God alone, and the basis for prophethood, that there are wisdoms and reasons why there is prophethood and the need for prophethood. And then he basically founds monotheism and prophethood on the structure and system of creation. And so he makes all of these points about the nature of creation and how it is in order and how it has this system and functionality, and that all of that points to a creator who should be worshipped. And really, reality is creator and creation. There is no other category of existence. So all of creation is depending upon and relying upon the creator, and our system and functionality and existence all comes from him. So we owe him our devotion and gratitude. And then Surah Al-Nahl really hits hard on the hereafter and what's going to happen and why people will go where they go. Towards the end of Surah Al-Nahl, it gets into the call for justice and setting a moral system of justice and keeping people accountable for their responsibilities and their trusts and contracts. And it concludes the surah with emphasizing that we follow the Abrahamic way, the universal monotheism that's easygoing. It's not sectarian. It is the pure devotion to God alone and nothing else. And then it talks about calling others to that path. So when we look at verse number 2, right at the beginning, it says, we send down these angels with the message, with the sacred message, and they picking the prophets that will come with this message, that they will tell the people, La ilaha illa ana fattaqun. God is declaring to you that you are accountable to him. There is no deity and nothing worthy of worship except for God alone. So be mindful of him. Commit yourself to him. If we go into verse number 4, خَلَقَ الْإِنسَانَ مِن نُطْفَةٍ فَإِذَا هُوَ خَصِيمٌ مُبِينٌ. That the human being was created from just some mixed little liquid. And then the human being grows up and becomes full of pride and becomes this argumentative force, this know-it-all. And so then it goes through so many evidences and examples of God's creation and how it works and how it functions and how its system is, and that he is the one who created it and he had put it there. And so ponder, reflect, contemplate over these things. And then he makes the point at the end of all of that. Is the one who creates similar to the one who cannot create? Obviously, the creator is unique, set aside in his majesty and in his place of worthy righteousness from us, from our gratitude and piety and commitment. None others. Creation is creation. We should never commit ourselves to creation. And then if we go to verse number 36, it talks about the universality of the message. We have sent to every nation a messenger. The messenger's message is very simple. It says, worship God alone and avoid the deviation from this. Verse number 43, all peoples were sent prophets, and prophets were sent with the revelation. So ask those who have knowledge of this message, this reminder of the revelation, so that you may be guided aright. So the prophets have inheritors, and those are the scholars. The scholars will interpret and understand this revelation so that we can understand how it works and how it applies in our lives. If we go to verse number 90, this is the verse, the comprehensive verse of Islamic law. Verse number 90 from Surah Al-Nahl, 1690. Indeed, you hear it in every sermon. For this reason, if you go into any introduction to Islamic law, you will find this emphasis on this verse. If you hear the sermon, Inna Allah ya'muru bil adli wal ihsani wa ita'i dhil qurba. Right? God commands to justice, to selfless altruism, to taking care of the family bonds and the family lineage, to prohibiting all of those foul, filthy, shameful acts of immorality, all of the sins and all of the aggression and oppression. This is the main structure of Islamic law. If we go to verse number 123, in the conclusion, وَأَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْكَ أَنِ اتَّبِعْ مِلَّةَ إِبْرَاهِيمَ حَنِيفًا. We are giving you this message so that you will follow the Abrahamic model, who was a father of nations, who was the Imam of nations. His style was worship God, speak the truth, be intellectual, explain things clearly, understand this message as the permanent truth of all existence, the balance of truth. And the last is the verse number 125. ادعوا إلى سبيل ربك بالحكمة والموعظة الحسنة وجادلهم بالتي هي أحسن. So call to the path of your Lord with wisdom. Understand who it is that you're talking to. How do they think? How can I best communicate to them so that they will receive my message? وَالْمَوْعِظَةِ الْحَسَنَةِ. And be nice and easygoing. Don't be argumentative and angry and debating with people. Don't be judgmental and harsh. وَجَادِلْهُمْ بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ. Make sure you know your stuff. If you're going to argue with somebody, if you're going to make a discussion on religion, make sure that you are in a position of knowledge. You know your points. You have your talking points. What are the facts of the proofs of revelation and the truth of Islam? And then how they think, whatever, if they're atheist or Christian or Jewish or Buddhist or whatever, you're trying to talk to them and communicate to them the message. How do they think? What can I relate to them on? How can we build some common ground so that then I can bring some questions that will help us dig deeper to see why I would be Muslim and why you might actually be Muslim too, if you think about it. So these are the wisdoms. If we look at Surah Al-Nahl, it really is the surah of Dawah. It's that surah that really teaches us a comprehensive understanding that is very rational and very well articulated from divine speech. So we have to really take this surah in and really take those messages and then carry them with us and see the beauty and the divine system around us, commit ourselves to the divine system with our freedom of will, and learn to call others to that message. جزاكم الله خيرا. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.